Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. I'm your host, Kiera Dent, and I had this crazy idea that maybe I could combine a doctor and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, regional manager, practice owner, and I have a team of traveling consultants where we have traveled to over 165 different offices coaching teams. Yep, we don't just understand you, we are you. Our mission is to positively impact the world of dental, and I believe that this podcast is the greatest way I can help elevate teams, grow VIP experiences, reduce stress, and create A-teams. Welcome to the Dental A-Team Podcast. Hello, Dental A-Team listeners. This is Kiera, and I have been envisioning this podcast for years. True story. The guest that I have coming on today, she has been somebody who has been influential in my journey in my career. She actually hired me as a front office in Arizona. So she was my office manager, several years ago, back in 2012. And then we've just kind of known each other. She's been my personal coach. She's a licensed emotional intelligence coach. She's been in the dental industry for years. And now, you guys, I don't know how I struck gold, but she coaches on our Dental A-Team coaching team. And I am so excited. She's masterful. She's taught me so much of what I know today. I look up to her. I respect her. I will literally sit and just learn from her. And I'm so excited to welcome Tarley to the show. So Tarley, how are you today?
Oh, couldn't be more excited about being here with you. And every time it's so funny you introduce me, it's it brings me back to when I first met you and working together with you in that capacity. And now looking at how we get to work together now is so fun to see how life unfolds in the most brilliant ways.
I could not agree with you more. It's just this like serendipity, realizing that life does not run in linear courses, but a circular pattern, and just to see how we just keep evolving and morphing. And I love to reflect back to where we started. You guys, literally, when Tarley was my office manager, I even remember one day, I don't know why you were doing this, but it's fine. We didn't have patience. You were up front. You were painting or filing your nails. I can't remember. You're doing something with your nails, but you're just teaching me things of creating my own reality. Because I said, well, we're poor, Tarley. We're in grad school. And I remember you just kind of like spun. Tarley, you guys, has a mane of hair that is unreal gorgeous. Like it just like swirls. So it was like very vivid in my mind of how you did it. You spun around, your hair like flung, and you're like, Kiera, you create your own reality. You're creating this and you can see so many other things. And I remember when I worked with you, I had my email and I'd like pull it up after you left and I would type myself an email called Tarley Tidbits. And I would just like write all the things I had learned from you and they're still in my email. So I really just appreciate the influence you've had on my life and how fun it is for you to now coach with us. You're even in an office today. You snuck away for the podcast. So thank you. Thank you for what you've done for me and for all the other people that are listening today of what you'll give them.
Oh my gosh. Such my pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure.
All right. So Tarley, give us a little background. I've shared a little bit about you, but give us kind of a background of your journey. And then let's dive into what I think you are masterful on. And that is having hard conversations with team members, which I know this is a valuable skill that everybody could benefit from.
Yes, communication. It has to do with communication. And communication is just a foundational piece on having any relationship be better. And we're always learning to improve our communication. So if just a short, brief, information around who I am, where I came from is my passion lies really in just always expanding, understanding human beings. So I participated in education for 10 years of ontology, which is the science of being, because we're all human beings. And I really have the passion to understanding us. Like, why do we do what we do? Why do we cycle through the same things we cycle in? Why do our relationships drive us crazy? How do you really connect to people? How do you really connect with yourself? And so I spent 10 years studying this. And when I was in this, I actually met a dental consultant and ended up working with him. And because I knew people, I could work with doctors and their teams, and was effective in it. It wasn't because I knew dentistry; it was because I knew people. And then I went off on my own and did some individual, independent consulting, and that's when I learned dentistry. And so then I've just combined, since that was in 2010. So for the past 10 years, I have just really continued my expansion of knowledge around dentistry and people. Honestly, I don't think that there's ever somewhere I get to where there's nothing more to learn. I'm always learning. I'm always teaching. I'm always learning. And I just vacillate between the two spaces. Mm-hmm. And here I am now. Getting to work with you and my two worlds of coaching and consulting intertwine. And it's such a beautiful experience to be able to do this in the way that I do it.
I love that. And I always use you as an example for people who don't think that they can be in the world of dental without having dental experience. I'm like, let me teach you about what Tarley did. Let me introduce you to Tarley. You could close treatment plans like nobody I've ever seen. You were my idol, like what I mirrored myself off of, because you didn't know dental procedures. You didn't know. I remember you even told me like your first treatment plan, the person asked you a question and you said like, that's a great question. I don't know. We're going to find out together. And you closed it. You just like, so I think it's fun to have you share your story to empower people that you don't have to have those skills. You just need to know people and then blend them and grow, because I watched you do it so many times. You literally would come to me and I would be like, you don't know that, Tarley? And you're like, oh no, I have no idea what that is, but I know people and I'm learning continually. And so you would learn, you'd ask me questions or other people in the office, but you didn't know that. And yet you could close treatment plans and you could connect with people. It was a very fun experience to watch hands-on from an observer view of you.
Yeah, thank you. Really, I do remember that treatment plan. It was when I worked with Tiffany in her office.
By the way, Tarley is the reason that Tiffany and I know each other. And Tarley used to work with Tiffany as an office manager. So like, talk about the craziest. My mind can't even boggle it sometimes. It's such a trip. I love that this is our world and what we get to create and grow from. So go on, tell about this when you were working with Tiffany.
I just remember that that treatment plan. I was a partial. I didn't know teeth numbers. I knew nothing, but I knew how to listen. So I sat down with this older gentleman, talking about a partial. I had no idea what a partial was. I didn't know what you needed to do in order to even to what a dental assistant does for a partial. I didn't know all the stages of a partial, the impressions, all of that. I just remember sitting there listening to him and really understanding what his concern was and having the skill to listen from nothing, which is a skill, by the way. Listening is not something you innately just know how to do. It's actually a skill you learn, and it's something that's not necessarily taught unless you seek it out to learn it. It's probably the biggest part of communication is the ability to listen. And I just remember sitting here, I think it was like a $5,000 case. And I remember grabbing an assistant. It might have even been Tiff, because she was doing that too. And I was so confident that I didn't know that it doesn't matter whether you know or don't know something. Confidence is is a foundation under whether you know something or you don't know something, because you can be very confident that you don't know something. Mm-hmm. And patience, and that confidence allows people to trust. And it allows you to trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, other people trust you. And so I'll never forget that. It was the first treatment plan that I ever did. And it was just that experience of, oh yeah, I'm just going to listen to this man and see what he needs. And obviously he's here for a dental appointment. Obviously he's wanting to get a partial bowl. Let me just talk to him about that. I wasn't trying to sell him anything. I was interested in just understanding what he needs and educating him, then giving him an opportunity to buy something if it was in alignment with what he wanted. So very different than selling. A lot of times people don't feel like they have to sell dentistry. You don't have to sell dentistry. You just educate patients, educate them about what their options are, and then blend them with what's important to them. They can choose to buy dentistry or not. But we don't sell, we just educate. And it changes the whole experience of it, because now you don't have an agenda. You can actually just be with a patient. You can actually just genuinely be interested in getting to know, what are your needs? What's important to you? Oh, well, I have this solution over here. And does that match up with what it is that is important to you? Well, let me see. I can talk to you about it and you can decide. Then there's no selling. Feels much better. Feels much better.
It does. And I will tell you, type A people, you make my mind feel funny sometimes because I'm like, no, Tarley, we have results. We have things we need to go for if we're not setting it. And as you can even hear in the difference between Tarley and myself on this podcast, Tarley has much more of a flow of I'm just here as an opportunity, and we're not going to push an agenda. And it is very crazy, I will say, from my personality style, that when I do listen to Tarley and when I do try that, my life is less stressful. Things actually unfold much more naturally, and I usually get greater results than had I tried to push an agenda for that person. It's a very crazy world, because as I listen to you even right now, I'm like, Tarley, no, like I can't do that. That's not a way I can do this. I have to sell dentistry. But it's so cool, you guys, because I have flipped backwards and forwards on this exact concept. And it really is an easier flow, speaking from a true testimonial of how it really does work when you can come from that mindset. And it really does feel better. And that's really what we're there for, is to create an opportunity that's in alignment with what that patient's looking for.
Yeah, because that's how you really are of true service. You don't have an agenda. You're here to listen to them and to educate them on what it is you can provide that would sort out what they're needing. There's literally no selling. There's just educating. We are educators. And it just changes the whole context. It changes the whole feel of the dynamics inside of a relationship, because you are no longer pushing your own agenda on them. People can feel that. People can feel that.
They can. And this is why, you guys, Tarley has coached me for years. Past my Tarley tidbit sitting in her office, I would seek Tarley out. I would call her. I would ask her. I've paid for her to be my own professional coach because of these nuggets of a higher way of thinking, of a different way of thinking, of how to make life really flow as opposed to being forced. And it really is a masterful way of living that's even more fun and more fulfilling and enriching and engaging than how I was trying to push agendas.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's fun and fulfilling when you don't have your own personal agenda, when you can just be really, here's the key component. You want to know what it is? Be genuinely interested in another human being. Be genuinely interested. And it takes us being present and really just sitting down with a patient and getting in their world and not performing a role. Not like, listen, I'm an office manager, so I must accomplish A, B, C, and D. Okay, I got it. You know what you're responsible for in your role, whether you're a hygienist, you're an assistant, you're a doctor. Got it. You are very clear about what that role is. So let those be out there, and now be present with each patient and be genuinely interested in who they are. And you'll know what to do at that point, because you have already ingrained yourself in what you're responsible for. Or if you haven't, hey, let us help you figure out what you're responsible for. It is one thing we do help, is having people be clear about what they're responsible for. But once you're clear what you're responsible for, what your role is, you don't have to then operate like that. You can just be human to human. So much in healthcare and in dentistry. And when we walk in, people are like, last name, that's robotic. It's not about last. No, what's your name? Do you ever ask your friend date of birth? Hey, what's your date of birth? No, it's like, what's your birthday? Because people fall into these robotic places of like, I am treatment coordinator. I must do this. And we turn into robots. And then we're not genuinely interested in people anymore. We're interested in doing our job. And the moment we do that, we disconnect. Patients feel it. Your case acceptance won't be as high as it could. Patients won't feel as loyal to you as they could when they feel genuinely connected to you, like you genuinely care for them. That is such a secret sauce, and having a really successful practice, or taking your practice from where it is to the next level.
And Tarley, and it's fun because right now we had discussed beforehand, and I even said, we're going to go into this great skill of hard conversations. I had an agenda. We're going to talk about this. Guess what? The conversation's going this way, and it is beautiful. And I actually think this is what people need to hear. Don't worry. Tarley will come back on, guys. Now she works with me. Now our agendas are more aligned. Tarley, I'm seeing her this weekend. Like, don't you guys worry. But it's interesting because Tarley, like, let's talk about what actually happened this past week when we were together at Mastermind with Mark Costas. I toggle in this world of, well, I'm now Tarley's boss. That's weird. That's a weird zone for me to be in, you guys. Tarley has always been my teacher, my mentor, my coach, my boss. She was my office manager. I was always her student. That's how I've been. That's how our dynamic's been. Well, now, like, switch gears. She works in my company. And I've said to you many times, Tarley, but Tarley, like, I have to be your boss. It's a weird zone for me. And I feel conflicted inside of myself because I feel like I'm trying to push who I'm supposed to be. There's massive air quotes, supposed to be, because the reality is there is no supposed to be of how an office manager or a treatment coordinator or a boss or a dentist, there is no supposed to be. Yes, there are certain roles, like you were saying before, that we should follow. We know that, but there's no supposed to be. And I struggle with that. Like, this is a legit, you watch me. I feel like I like ping pong back and forth of being genuinely connected and then reverting back to like, whoa, I'm supposed to be a boss, or I'm supposed to be this way. I don't know if I should be that open or that vulnerable, or, I want to use our story because I think often when you hear stories, you can see how you're doing this in your own life as opposed to teaching that. But have you noticed that? Because I see it in myself of exactly what you're just teaching of. I go robotic because I think that there's a way I'm supposed to be, and I'm trying to live into that identity, even though sometimes it conflicts with what I want to be doing. Does that make sense? Are you following what I'm saying?
Yeah. A lot of times what happens when we step into roles, we think that we should have things more figured out, or we think that we should operate in a certain way, or we shouldn't let somebody see our messy side because that would just be unprofessional. And really what happens in there, it creates a disconnect. And because people, listen, we're all humans, we're all messy, we can all be unprofessional. We all have things about us that we try to hide from each other so we can put on this face, this pretty face, or this, put together way of being, when really you're a human being and you're messy, and so am I. And then when there's the space to actually give each other of the acceptance and the what do I want? Which word do I want right there? It's almost just acceptance of like, it's okay. I don't expect you to be put together all the time. But the moment you step into this place when it's like you're a boss and I'm an employee, it's like, but there's no equality. So now it's like, nope, I'm more than you, and then it gets wonky.
Mm-hmm. Same thing with like a treatment coordinator and a patient. Like, I'm a treatment coordinator. I close cases. Yes. You are my patient, and you should say yes. Like, I can hear that. Or I'm an office manager. I'm supposed to manage you guys and make sure you're performing. Or I'm a doctor and you guys should be performing at this level. Like, you can see all those dynamics. Or I'm a lead dental assistant, or I'm a lead hygienist. So therefore you should be performing this way. Is that accurate?
It's yes. Well, what happens is you don't view people as equal anymore. It's just like, because I'm an office manager and you're a dental assistant, you should just adhere to what I'm saying. And even if, as an office manager, if you make a mistake and you're like, oh, they had a really good idea and you already shot it down because you didn't think about it, but they brought it to you and you shot it down. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, that's a really good idea, but you don't go back and like give them an opportunity to actually use their idea. It's because when there's no equality, we don't value people. And people can feel when they're not valued. And then it creates this weird feeling. It creates a disconnection. And inside of that, what happens when creates a disconnection? Well, what comes up is the need to have hard conversations.
It does. So let's go right into that. I'm so excited. Look how perfect. You guys, do you see how I let go of my agenda and it steered exactly where we talked about it going? That's how life works. It's so crazy. And it's those control freaks out there with me. When you can just let go and ride the waves. Tarley tells me this all the time. Kiera, let go of the branch. You're going to go down the river anyway. Like, let go and flow on down. So do tell, Tar, how do you do hard conversations? Because you're right. It comes to that where you have to have these hard conversations. What have you found though? How do you do this?
Yeah. So part of being human and having relationships is times that will come up where there's upsets. And when we get upset, we a lot of times don't know how to handle that. And remember, communication is a foundation of being able to build a solid relationship. And so when we get upset, we tend to just suppress or withhold or pretend or some version of that. And what can really move us through that space is the ability to have what I would call a hard conversation. And what's really crazy is that they're actually not even that hard when you understand there's just a simple tool to deal with it. Mm-hmm. So basically a hard conversation is going to be something that you've been putting off. You've been putting off saying something to somebody. I promise you, everyone, I would say at least 98% of the people listening to this have a hard conversation. They have a conversation they haven't been willing to have at this point. Whether it's personally or professionally, think about it in your head right now. Where in your life, whether it's personally or professionally, are you withholding saying something to somebody because you don't know how it's going to go?
I will say that I just had about 10 conversations pop up when I really asked myself and started seeking. I was like, oh gosh, that one and that one and that one. And there were a lot that came up, and I thought I had all of mine. I practiced this. And I wanted to point that out, that I literally just had 10 of them show up when just in that exercise when you asked that question.
And can you point, Kiera, what is the thing that stops you from having those conversations? What can you point to? Can you see?
Mm-hmm. For sure. It's usually I'm going to mask it and say this because this is an overachiever's word. I'll say a lack of time, but when I really go deeper, it's a fear of rejection. Or a fear of loss of control of how they'll respond to that. It's a fear of me being messy and vulnerable in front of them. And so it really, I want to say it's time, Tarley. I just don't have time to talk to these people. Yeah, right. I make time for whatever I want to in my life. It's really the deeper cause is fear.
Yeah, right. Okay. So here is the little gold nugget in hard conversations that will move you and give you the ability to do them, is you say the thing that's stopping you from saying the thing. So people don't have hard conversations because they're afraid. Now, they're afraid for different reasons. Like Kiera was saying, you can be afraid to be rejected. You're afraid of being messy. You're afraid of hurting somebody's feelings. You're afraid of looking bad. You're afraid of not being liked. We have these fears, and how you can have a hard conversation is you say the thing that's stopping you. You actually say what you're afraid of. And the moment you say the thing you're afraid of, it'll actually free you up to then say what you weren't saying. So, for example, it's like, say you want to have a conversation with a team member about, I don't know, give me an example, Kiera. What's an example you want to use?
Being late or not stocking rooms or not hitting production goals.
Okay. All right. So
choose which one you want.
Sure. Being late. Like there's a team member that's consistent late. Maybe they're only like maybe 2-3 minutes late, but they're late, right? It's like, doesn't seem like a big deal, but it kind of, you've been noticing because you're always on time and you're kind of like, and whether you're whether you're a hygienist or an office manager or another assistant, you just notice this person is always rolling in like 2-3 minutes late. And you can find that you're kind of frustrated with them, but you don't say anything because it's not a big deal, right? It's not a big deal. Like they're only 2-3 minutes late, but you can feel that you're now have this little bit of like your irritation towards them. And you're just kind of like a little put off by them, and no one, and it's not being addressed, but your relationship with them is being impacted. You're just kind of like faking it. You don't really want to talk to them. Or if you do, you're just pretending and you're smiling, but you're like, you have this irritation underneath your skin. Right. So then it's like, okay, all there's to do is to have a conversation. And so what is it that you're afraid of? If you told this person, we're going to role play it here. If you told this person that that they were late and you weren't liking that they're late, what are you afraid would happen?
Well, if I'm a team member noticing it, I would feel like, who am I? What's my role in doing that? I'm not even in the authority to do that. So why should I say anything? If I was an office manager, I'd be afraid of, like, I'm just nitpicking and I'm micromanaging because it's really just 2 or 3 minutes late.
Got it. So there's the thing. That's exactly. So as an office manager, let's just say, because I think that's more typical.
Mm-hmm.
If the other team members may or may not say something or may not need to say something, they can get over it. But if we look at the office manager, basically it's saying the thing that you're afraid of. So listen, Susie, I know I have been having this fear of having this conversation with you because I feel like, it's not that big of a deal yet. I know that I can feel underneath like I'm upset about it. And I don't want to make it a big deal, but I get that it's making a big deal because I feel this like frustration underneath, and I value my relationship to you more than just continuing to have a frustration and finding myself wanting to disconnect from you. And what I've noticed is that, on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, you're supposed to be here at 9:00 and you were here at 9:03. And the rule is 9:00. And I feel like I didn't want to have this because it's not a big deal, but I can feel that it upsets me because now I don't know. I feel like I am now being slippery around what if other team members are noticing it. And more importantly, I just don't want to impact my relationship with you. And knowing that I have this irritation growing because I haven't been saying what I needed to say.
Mm-hmm. You said a lot of things in there as a team member that I heard of you honor your relationship with me more than this upset. And something you just talked about at our mastermind when you were teaching this is I love you pointed out because someone role played this with you. And a lot of times we'll say the thing that we're upset that's holding us back, like, Tarley, I'm really scared to have this conversation with you because I don't want you to think that I don't value you as a coach. I don't want you to think that I'm micromanaging you, whatever it is. And then what they say, but I want to have this conversation with you. And I loved that you coach that you say that when I say, but I've just undermined everything I just said to you. And I can change that word, but to saying, and I honor my relationship more with you. So let's chat about this and find a solution. And literally, even just right now, when I said it like, but it's like, but here's the rule, suck it up, buttercup, as opposed to saying, and it flows better. And it makes you realize that I really did mean what I said before of how scared I was. I wasn't undermining what was holding me back from talking to you.
Yeah, that's really great. It is very true because but negates everything that was just said. It's like la 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 la. But okay, so it basically all these great things. I really like you and I love hanging out with you, but I really didn't like da 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 da. And so but just basically negated everything you just said. Now all that's left in the space, all that you're present to is like, oh, they're just irritated at me. And there's a completely different, words make a difference. Words create worlds. Words have an impact on how we experience something. And it is very powerful to use and instead of but. And it's very powerful when you actually communicate what you're afraid of, that you own it as well. You actually own that, you don't blame it on someone else. I'm afraid you're going to see me and I'm going to be messy and you're not going to I'm not going to be valued anymore. I'm afraid that you won't like me. I'm afraid you're going to leave. I'm afraid of being rejected. I'm afraid of making a mess and not being able to clean it up by actually speaking my mind. I'm afraid I don't know how to do this right. I'm afraid I don't know how to have this conversation and have it turn out well. And so I've been withholding what I want to say, but really I'm committed to this relationship. I'm committed to being successful. I'm committed to being a better person. And what happened is, and you want to state the facts. You want to state like a factual, not a story about something. And that's a whole nother podcast, the difference between story and facts. But that's a valuable one too, is what is the difference between a fact and a story? A big difference.
Huge.
Yeah, but it's really simply said. I feel like we said a lot. Simply said is, hard conversations, you start them by saying the thing that's stopping you from saying what really you want to say. And it's usually around what you're afraid of. State what your fear is and own it. I'm afraid of being messy. I'm afraid of doing this wrong. I'm afraid that it's I won't be liked anymore. I'm afraid of jeopardizing our relationship. You own your fear. And then once you own your fear, it'll actually it opens the door for you now to say the thing that you were withholding.
I love it. I love it, Tarley. I love learning from you. I love talking to you. I love listening to you. I love this concept because I've tried it personally. It terrifies me. You guys, I am downright terrified when I do this. But when I follow this simple formula, it is crazy how effective and efficient and well received it is every single time I've tried it. Every time I've done this, it works. It's incredible. It works so well.
And it's like the more we do it, the easier it gets. Then you're just like, and then you just have dynamic relationships because you're not withholding any communication from anybody. And then relationships just get more connected, closer. There's more just affinity, love present. And it takes practice though. It's not like you just have it handled. It's like a continual practice, just like everything in life, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Awesome.
Oh, I love it, Tarley. Thank you so much for taking time today and sharing your nuggets, the vast value of information that you have acquired is amazing. So thank you. Thank you for sharing this today and taking time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me and getting to do this. I love going back and forth and doing this with you. It brings so much joy to my life. Genuinely, I mean that.
I know you do, and I appreciate that. So, you guys, this is Tarley. Tarley is one of our incredible coaches. I love having you on our team. So thank you for that. And Dental A Team listeners, thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on the Dental A Team podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of our Dental A Team family. Now, we're going to take it to the world. So help us out. Help us positively impact the world of dental by leaving us a review, leaving us 5 stars. This is how we can spread it to the masses and help even more people grow to a better version of themselves. Thank you guys so much, and thank you for being a part of my Dental A Team family.